Let's go ahead and get started. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
In your packets, the minutes of the September 12, 2023 meeting minutes appear pages 1 to 3. Are there any additions, corrections, comments? If not, do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Thank you, Mr. Bond. You have a motion, I guess, second by George?
Sure. Yes.
Yes. Of course. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Next, do we have any public comment? I don't see anybody signed up. If anybody wants to make public comment, now's the time. Anything on the agenda? Seeing no one, we're moving on to planning 3.1, Northwest Indiana 2050 Plus, climate and environment presentation. Kathy Luther is making the presentation today. This is informational.
It escaped. Thank you. Take a minute. There it is. This is an attempt to be a brief overview of Chapter 3 of the NWH 150 Plus, which is climate and environment. Feel free to stop me if you have any questions. Some of this you guys have seen before, because I know I've come and talked about the climate action plan before, but in general, I wanted to acknowledge the support of Air Charter Indiana, Drive Clean Indiana, Region Resilience, and the IU Environmental Resilience Institute on the climate section, and the Climate Land Conservation Partnership on the conservation planning section. So I'm going to try to follow the outline of finding meaning, creating purpose, and purpose-driven planning. So the climate context is depending on whether we get a medium emission scenario globally or a high emission scenario, which, being honest, I'm thinking high emission is more likely. We're looking at between probably 70 to 73 total days with extreme heat events by 2050. So whereas right now we are getting 19 to 23. So and that's a range across the counties. But so from 20 to 70, that's a 3.5 time increase in high heat events. And then extreme precipitation events going from about 12 to 13, 14, a few more, not as many more as the other, but still concerning, since we know we have some flood-prone areas. I think you've all seen the baseline greenhouse gas inventory before, that in our particular region, industrial energy use and industrial process emissions are 80% almost of our total emission profile, but the next highest one is transportation, which is obviously our bread and butter here. We've also done some analysis of sequestration by trees and forests, and only recently did I figure out how to put in the nitrogen fertilizer. So that took a chunk out of the awesome benefits we were getting from the trees, but we're getting about 100,000 tons a year removal from the forest we have now. So just a comparison, I had to read, the pie charts aren't the same because the US EPA inventory protocol is not quite the same as the global protocol we did for the whole rest of the inventory, because they count electricity generation as its own sector, whereas we counted it before in the users, right? We counted electricity as the residential or commercial users. In any case, nationally average is 20 tons per person, greenhouse gas emitted, and the industry is about 23%. Statewide, it's about 31 tons per person, Industry is about 24%. Okay, we're a full state, so that's probably not surprising that it's larger than the national. And then ours is 70.5 tons per person, obviously not matching that. I did do some math on that, and we have proposed to treat the industrial emissions kind of off regionally, not assigning them to local governments, which the protocol calls for. If you take out the 67% industry from us, that's 87. I can't remember the slide. 67?
Yeah.
Oh, because it's different, because electric isn't in there. Okay. And then replace it with the 24% of the state for industry, we come down to 19 tons per person. So, I think that validates our strategy of kind of taking that off the table as not things we can actually control. Also, it seems like the steel mill and the refinery should belong to everyone, not just us. So that was the change. So in Chapter 3 of the NWI 2050 Plus, we did a lot more detail on the transportation segment of the emission inventory. And this actually surprised me. On-road gasoline vehicles was 70% of our transportation sector emissions, followed by 14% for diesel. And most people, when you talk to them, they immediately comes to mind, the dirty diesel trucks. But in fact, the gasoline vehicles is everywhere, right? That's about 4.7 million tons per year in 2017. Comes out to 4 tons per person in the gasoline part. I call yourself on a per capita basis. Interestingly, the data we had for aviation, marinas, and transit combined was less than 1% of the total. Disclaimer that MERID, the marine, the federal agency responsible for like the ports, they're only figuring out their inventories now, so I really didn't have any data on the big ships, which would fall into that category. The other one that I thought was interesting is the third highest is the non-road diesel and CNG, which is combined in the protocol. That's about 12%. So that's like construction equipment, farm equipment, things that aren't just, normally driving around. Although maybe this time of year, farm equipment is driving around, but. And that's just kind of a federal number because I don't really have an inventory of how many. So for creating purpose, any questions?
Is there any way to split out kind of interstate travel through the region versus within the region movement, either by looking at road average miles or total miles traveled or interstates versus all the other roads that we have, or?
So there's scope 1, which is what you generate in your community, and so that's the emissions so that basically is, and here, because I did this regionally, when I go down and talk to each community, it's going to look different. Basically use the transportation model and the emissions that Scott has. Because this model comes up with the greenhouse gas emissions. It basically just takes the VMT and the fleet mix. So those are the two things you can control. The miles traveled and the type of vehicles emitting.
And that's based on population
That's based on whatever the transportation model says. So it's all like
actual vehicles being by mile being driven, which would include, I guess.
Yeah. So vehicle miles traveled is that split? There's internal, and then there's a cross boundary. So I think there's a cross boundary piece that's separated out. But because I did the whole region,
This is combined.
yeah, this is combined. I didn't
We
split it out.
did
for this.
split them out to get to this.
Yeah, when we go to help if any communities wanting to do local climate action, then we can dig down in the data more to figure out internal versus, commuters. So what we at NERC are the goal of this project and the commitment I've made to the climate work group is to develop a regional framework for climate action with science-based carbon reduction targets, to adopt the science-based reduction targets and the regional climate action plan into the long-range transportation plan, hence that chapter in WI 2050+. Provide support and assistance to local governments wanting to create and adopt local climate action plans, and maintain and update the inventory in these plans on kind of a 5-year cycle. So, creating purpose. Again, this is the inventory, and our science-based reduction target is based on a one city protocol, and which assigned us a 63.4% reduction by 2030, and everybody's trying to get to net zero by 2050. So this is just a bunch of math about that, but the 62.4% by 2030 and net zero. And so what our target is then is to get down to 20 from our current 54 by 2030. And then it really, if the only offsets we have are the trees, we have a lot to do. So we might or figure out other offsets to get to 2050. But looking forward, we forecasted 2030 to 2050 greenhouse gas emissions. We use the same forecast that we use all the rest in the long range plan. We use I use the travel growth forecast, the population growth forecast. The job growth forecast is actually based on the population growth forecast. So I use household growth rates for residential energy growth, jobs growth rate for commercial energy, and then I think I used industrial jobs for the industrial. But the drop there is NIPSCO, they're investing in green energy, reducing their coal footprint by 2028. They hope to be completely divested of coal. That is in their resource plan that's adopted or accepted by the Utility Regulatory Commission. That's not the right name for it, but so we're considering that a legally sort of binding commitment. So there's a significant drop in our greenhouse gas from electricity by 2030 from all sectors. And you can see in the residential and the commercial energy sector, it's huge. It's huge still in industrial energy, but there's a ton of greenhouse gas emitted from other combustion of coal blast furnace gas and oil and other stuff. And then the industry numbers are self-reported to EPA and public, and then but then we also have industrial energy from NIPSCO, and we kind of subtracted that out. So there's no double counting to get to that. So what does that look like? If our target, if you include the industry, the target for 2030 was 18 million tons. It's more like 12. It's a smaller pie chart, 12 million tons. If you just take them out and don't look at them. But in 2030, the NIPSCO reduction is the middle. That's the middle table. The NIPSCO decoalification actually gets everything but industrial process below that 2030 goal. So just by their reducing the electricity footprint. If we take industry out of it, we're still most of the way there. Just a little bit, maybe 2 million tons over. But then by 2050 growth kind of undoes that if we grow the same way we have been growing. So purpose-driven planning is a little bit what the Climate Action Northwest Indiana brand is representing, multi-stakeholder, what everybody is kind of doing in the plan, long-term action and long-term planning, and hopefully the planning cycle will be 3, the inventory, the action plan framework, and the resiliency plan, which will be coming up in my initiative. Let's see, this is just an outline of what's in the plan. And the science targets, I'll read it outline to you. When we start prioritizing emission sources for planning action, we really focused on sources, kind of split the sources into those we can influence, and they're high emissions. Those are high emissions we can't influence, and those that are low emission but we could influence, kind of your standard standard way to divide up tasks. And so our regional priorities are the top 5 emissions, which are regional sectors, the industry, industrial energy, transportation, residential energy, and commercial energy. Of those, the only ones we have a lot of influence over is transportation. We also added conservation and tree sequestration as a regional action plan. And then we anticipate that local governments would also have some influence on transportation. They have the ability to influence residential and commercial energy, and the ability to influence trees and forests in their jurisdictions. So those would be areas that we might have some regional strategies, and then when we go to local governments, we would help with those strategies that are right for you. What about the emission source breakdown? This is our highest emission category is industrial energy use. We have very limited ability to influence it. In our region, it seems like the industries are leaning in heavy on carbon storage and sequestration. There's been some kind of automatic pushback on that from some of the environmental activist groups. I think the best thing we can do is keep an open mind and learn as much as we can about it. And they're not going to store the carbon in our 3 counties, but they are going to have pipelines to move it south and east of us. So I think it's important for all of us to kind of keep an eye on this. That's one of our strategies. Is if we determine it is safe and is important, then as leaders we should encourage it, and not knee-jerk reaction to no. And then there are other strategies. This is an example of a direct reduction iron plant in Toledo that Cleveland Cliffs built that does not burn coal, does not use coke. So our next largest regional strategy is transportation mobile sources. The kind of good news here is all the strategies for this are strategies we've been supporting and planning and building into our system for decades. Ever since I've been here, we really want people, if possible, drive less, have cleaner vehicles. So that is complete streets and active transportation, that is transit, that is better planning, so there's less sprawl, that is electric vehicles and propane buses and all those things. We do have pretty low EV adoption rate. Increasing it even to 6% by 2050 would require us to have 35 times more EVs than we have now. So right now we have 0.172, less than 1% of those. Only plug-in hybrid, no. Hybrid electric, that's like your Prius, right? So that's one area where we can lean in with infrastructure as local governments. And so this is just an example of where the current EV stations are the yellow, and then there's some black dots showing where they're planned to be installed between the NEVI program and the NIPSCO VW project. And then we have subsequently submitted for grant funding to double, triple that. So this strategy that is regional and local is residential and commercial energy use. I think that it's difficult in Indiana. I don't think you can adopt building codes that are more stringent than the state's building codes, but you could incentivize that for new development or retrofit. work with residents on solar. Those are the kind of things, and just energy education and energy conservation. And then for forestry and trees, this is important too. Our actual forest and urban canopy sequestered 400,000 tons of carbon dioxide between 2011 and 2016, but certain things caused more carbon to it. Deforestation, converting to settlement. You can't see this very well, but there's some graphics in the chapter about how much land converted from forest to developed, and how much tree canopy lost. Another factor, a big emission factor, was actually disturbed forests. We have a lot of emerald ash borer. Many of you have been participating in community tree and getting tree replacements. And the emerald ash borer disturbance caused the forests to generate a lot of. So not only having trees, but maintaining them and is important for that. So that's big. That's another section. There's a kind of a detailed appendix to that. And then the last new section, it's new in that it's a more focused look in the Greenways and Blueways 2020. We did a lot about kind of connecting, Greenway connecting the habitat focus. And in the subsequent years, NERC worked with a number of local and regional conservation agencies and have identified 8 areas in Northwest Indiana. This is in the Lake Michigan Basin that are really high quality. They have nature reserves, they have parks, they have really high biodiversity. So we're looking at that as a kind of a hub model that those areas are really high priority for conservation. If we're going to put money into regional scale forestry or connectivity, we would want to focus there. We would want to encourage conservation development there, and also access to open space to the extent possible. And you'll see this reflected in the land use chapter, where we included these areas as kind of plan around, and you notice that we also have river corridors in there which connect the hubs, so that as climate changes, species can be more resilient moving north, south, east, west, and have access to water if things are drier.
Blueways and greenways.
Yes. So in this chapter, this is a short section. There's a whole document. It's actually currently on Save the Dunes website. We're going to post a link on our website shortly. It's called Conservation Action Plan Alignment Summary, and there's reference to it in the chapter 3 and the link to where it's posted, with drilling down in the detail. Before. Then when we go into the local community section of the Climate Action Plan, we kind of have sorted the communities in buckets based on population growth changes and kind of the development style of the community, which is similar to how it was handled in the land use chapter. And then, so the strategies will be really focused on individual community types. If you're an expanding community, you have more opportunity to incentivize builders to do things differently. But if you're a stable community, you're not really building much, you're focusing more on retrofits. Maybe if you're a stressed community, you have more vacant land and opportunity for larger green energy solutions. So that's how we're going to have a suite of strategies for these different types. Definitions of what they are. And here we've looked at just straight on population. I've listed out all of our municipalities based on where they would fit on this spectrum of expanding to stressed. And then there's emission profiles. So here's an example of 3 different emission profiles for the communities we did inventory. Some of the communities are very heavy residential energy. Not too surprising looking at them: Cedar Lake, Lake Station, LaPorte, not heavy industry areas, not heavy, particularly heavy commercial areas. Their second one is commercial, though. The pinkish one is residential. The gray one is transportation. The dark orange one is commercial. The commercial heavy is you focus more on your businesses. And then in the balanced source sectors, those communities, their emissions are coming fairly evenly from those three areas. So they could invest in any sector to get some impact. And then there's some source sectors like water, they're very small in general, but if you have a water plant or a wastewater plant, you might have some capacity there to influence emissions there. You could have a direct impact, even though it's a smaller sector. There. That is chapter 3. Any questions?
You can find this all online.
Yes.
I'm looking at it right now.
Thank you.
No questions for Kathy? You all excited?
Thank
I
you.
know many of you have waited a long time for us to get done with this.
Thank you, Kathy.
Who's next? You guys can go ahead and just send that
And next we have Resolution 2303, the Sensible Tools Handbook. This is a revision, or dare I say update, of the 2007 award-winning
It's a
Sensible Tools
continuation.
Handbook. Yeah, major, but great expectations for this as well. So, Mon, we're asking that action to recommend this to the commission. The Sensible Tools Handbook is on there as well, please.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
So I hope that you be patient with us with all of this presentation, but it's a good information, so I think it will be beneficial for your community. So the Sensible Tools Handbook Plus, because we had one before that was adopted in 2007, we had a significant recommendations from the 2050 plan in 2019 to update or continuing the same efforts, especially we had so many changes, challenges, opportunities, and we needed to have a new book. So I was the project manager for this specific project, but I have a wonderful team, experts. We all work in different sections. So I had Kathy, Mitch, Scott, and also we had Joe Excel, the former senior planner, environmental planner here at NERC, who was working with us also in this report. So this is showing the 2007 and the 2023 handbook and the difference between both. The 2007, when we came up with this book, it was basically we worked with the Ball State University, Dr. Eric Kelly, and we decided to have this handbook to help all the plan commissioners, planners, zoning administrators, developers, to come up with best practices and how to make the right decisions about any future development or growth within your communities. So we had a different chapters, discussed different things that is happening within a community, and we provided a checklist and questions that before making a decision on any application, you can go through the questions and you get the right answer for that. So in the 2023, we still we just updated the checkup questions and the checklist just to reflect all the new land use data or any challenges or opportunities like climate change, and resiliency, and smart cities and TOD. So all of that wasn't really included on the 2007 version, so we updated all the questions to include them. So the 2007 handbook tools, handbook tools, included planning for sensible growth, which is the discussion about the comprehensive plans, the sensible growth checkup for public investments, if they would like to have a zoning to implement sensible growth, subdivision control, and growth management. The next set here is basically to make a decision about any of the application. If you want to do zoning amendment, you have a PUD, you have a subdivision plan or a development site plan review, and then we added lately the green infrastructure. So an example here showing the questions. So this is like if you really need to determine if you need a comprehensive plan or not. So you answer the questions, you add the scores here, and actually this one is going the opposite way. So if you get 0, it means that you are a leader in planning, and if you got over 40, that it's really critical that you need a comprehensive plan. So that's an example, but like we have almost 15 questionnaires here for people to go over before making any decisions. The 2023 Sensible Tools Handbook here. This is more to supplement the 2007 and also adding more tools and practices. So in this one, like we don't have the questions, but we have a checklist, we have tools, we have best practices that community could use if they wanted to plan for something or make decisions about something. And so we put together a working group, included planners, and also we worked with the Purdue Extension and the Purdue campus on Lafayette, the land use planning. We all worked together to have the themes or the desired outcomes of this handbook. So this is a list that, of course, we focus more on sustainability and resiliency and a smart city and cell towers, fiber optics, electric vehicles. All of that wasn't addressed in the 2007, so we added that on the 2023. So we came up with the 5 themes: resilient, healthy, sustainable, equitable, and smart. And in every one here, like the resilient, for example, we focus on hazard mitigation and the green infrastructure or stormwater management. Healthy, this is a heavy lifting chapter, which we address anything that is related to the health of the community, like air quality, water quality, sanitation, green cities, aging population, and I'm gonna discuss most of these elements as fast as I can because it's so many elements. Sustainable, another one, heavy lifting here, which include all of these 8 elements. Equitable, that's really important to focus on that in EJ area and universal design, and equitable transit, which something came lately in the last 10 years. And then the smart, of course, discussing all the technology, and which is moving very fast. Resilient, we talk about resiliency, and specifically that's something now came with the climate change and how to react in case of natural disasters, what kind of programs and policy to mitigate all of these hazards. And also focus on the stormwater management. The picture here on the top showing this is like a Portage Lakefront, and you see the damage when it happened. We also have like this map showing the percentile precipitations, and we are one of the highest in our area here, which is the darker blue area at 42% increase or change, and we will continue to have like more rain in our area, and that's something that we should consider. Of course, with every chapter, we offering multiple tools to handle all of these issues or have better policies within the communities. The next one here, of course, we are also talking about the stormwater management, which is a major contributor to the water pollution, especially in urban areas. So we provide the tools and design and modeling tools also that the community could use. Healthy, as I mentioned before, it has so many items. We're focusing here on the air quality and the compressed natural gas, especially for buses and school buses and trucks. And Hobart, showing here on the right, that it came in the news as small cities in Indiana, that they have the CNG station within the area, and that's something, if we really, they moved from diesel to CNG, that could produce 95% less nitrogen and also particulate matter. The one in the top here showing also the compact development, which has a good contribution. This is Barcelona, built up area, and this is Atlanta. We're comparing both because they almost same, close to the population. So it's 2.8 million in Barcelona and 2.5 million in Atlanta, but you can see the size. They are using here 162 square kilometer, and here they use over 4,000 square kilometer, and of course impacting the emissions. In Barcelona is 0.7 and Atlanta 7.5. And that's again showing the compact development and compact design help with the air quality. The next one here is water quality, and we have specifically for a specific septic system have like these 5 key factors. I don't have to read over that, but like we need to have a good information about the soil, a good design, following the design, and also when we install it, it has to be in a good weather and regular maintenance. And if we are missing one of these 5 components, it shows a failure in the system right now. And we have tools and some policies and ordinance for the septic system within that the community can review. Green cities, and that's also to support sustainable lifestyle. And any green cities should have, of course, a transit, bike lanes, green space, and also talking about wellness and good air quality, biodiversity. So we looked at here at the Wallet Hub Education, and they did like a comparison of the top 100 most populated cities within the states, and they utilized like 4 key dimensions, but the highest one was the environment, which is 40%. And of course, they have a lower greenhouse gas emissions. They also have like a high percentage of green space, good water quality, the highest population density, and light pollution. That's all contribute to a green cities. For transportation, they're looking for more like the commuter, the shared drive. They look more for a high walk score and a bike score. Of course, a high intersection streets, and the more, the better the connectivity. It's encouraging more biking and pedestrian to go within the area. Energy, they have solar and wind energy system, and also the lifestyles here looking for farmer markets. If they have more per capita, and if they have also more the urban gardens within their area. So anyway, we were lucky enough to get like 3 communities within Indiana that ranked within the top 100, and Indianapolis came like in the number 36 on this rank, and really Indianapolis has significant like urban agriculture and urban farms and green space. We are located within the Chicago MSA, and the rank came 65, and then Fort Wayne came as 77. The next one here is a map showing the the green space within the area per capita. So the more lighter yellow or green, it means that we're lacking green space within this area. And when I look carefully, it's more in the EJ area. And that's something that like we should consider to add more green space and trees within this area. Also looked at the pedestrian-oriented area, which is the dark brown, showing that they have a good connectivity of a street network, which encouraging pedestrian. The next one here is active transportation facilities, and that's, I know that Mitch did a good job, you know, like informing your committee and other committees too about complete streets, so I'm not going in more details on that. I know that you know it very well. But anyway, that's also covered within the healthy and looking more at especially, you know, the good stuff, the mid-block crossing, the shared routes, and having like sidewalks. And this is like something really important for healthy and for safety too. Aging population here. So the people over 65 represent almost 21% here within the state of Indiana. But like when they did a projection, they found out that people over 65 by 2030 they will increase by 46%, and people over 80s they will increase by 47%. By 2050, actually, people over 80, they will increase by 121%. That's the projection, and the over 65 by 57%. So we have like some recommendation, and we should have like a good consideration for the aging population, where we locate them, how to accommodate this aging population within the area. We're offering also the safe routes for seniors guidelines within the healthy chapters. It's showing here that like within all of these top communities here, by 2030 we only have Porter County here showing increase by 2030 47%, and that's something should be considered. Also school siting, we noticed that some communities they have the school, the primary school and secondary or high school far away from the actual population that they serve. I know a good example of that was Winfield. They all go to Crown Point School, but they are far away really from the schools. I know that they are building now a middle school, and I know that Crown Point also, I don't know if they are done with that. This is maybe a little old, but they converting the old high school within the downtown to a middle school. Walking school bus is very important, and they have so many programs now to promote that. Street connectivity, as I mentioned before, again, this is like you have a cul-de-sac here, you have so many nodes, and you have like links, which in this chart showing the nodes equal the links, which give like the equation here, it's 1. Versus if we have a better connectivity, we will have less nodes and more links, and this is like even giving a better equation. So the next one is traffic calming, and we have more for safe routes for school, and we all know about that, especially with our funding. Traffic calming, that's for safety and sense of security also, showing different tools and ordinance to have a traffic counts. It's over 180 pages book, so it has so many information, but I can't present all of that in one presentation. Transit, of course, we're focusing more on the transit-oriented development, but like we're showing what's a good design and what's a road design should be. We're showing all the principles and also the different sort of funding and implementation within a station area. The transit safety and security, and that's we offer here for transit agencies that they should gather information about pedestrian access to transit, and they look at the, for example, if they are using pathways, which if they don't have a sidewalk, they use a specific area to go to the station, and they should know that so we can right away decide where is the need of the sidewalk. If the pedestrian compete for seating either on the bus or in the shelter, that's another thing that we should be aware of. Pedestrian crossing the mid-block, there is so many best practices for mid-block crossing, and also safety for people here, as you see, crossing with the bike in front of the trains, and that's something how we can do about that. There is a different studies and tools to improve these issues. Sustainable, as I mentioned, it's a heavy lifting one, but urban forestry here, so talk about the management of urban forestry, and here example of the city of Portage, Porter County. So that's the current like vegetation or urban forestry within the area, but the chart on the bottom showing that they have even more opportunity to have more open space and plantation within their area. Wetland protections and all the benefits of the wetland protections in erosion control, surface and ground water, and of course the flooding and stormwater, and also how to protect wetland with some planning programs and ordinance. Also the farmland preservation, and we have so many tools that supporting that. However, in Indiana, we are in risk of conversion all of the farmland into other use, and that's Indiana is one of the states that is really have a threat in this conversion. Water conservation, different tools, and how other good communities they have a good practices of the consumption of water, and that's also, I know it's so many things, but I'm trying to cover as much as I can. Urban agriculture, and that's of course it's offering better waste management, energy conservation, biodiversity, and the city of Indianapolis here is one of the leaders here in urban agriculture, which they have within the city like over 134 urban farms. On the left here, we have the urban agriculture audit tool, and that's something that the community or even people could use it if they wanted to have an urban agriculture. They go through this audit tool and see, what they need or what they are missing. Energy, we're focusing more on the solar and wind energy. We have a whole appendix showing ordinance here within Indiana. If a community or individuals wanted to have a solar panel, or also within their land, or if they have like a suitable land to have here a wind tower or a turbine. The next one here, still we have here at NERC, we have the solar ready construction checklist that Kathy worked on that, and that's something available also for the community to go over the checklist for the solar energy. Brownfield redevelopment, that's Kathy's story. Here she did so many, she applied for so many grants, she worked already and brought some communities are working in brownfield redevelopment. Equitable, focusing on environmental justice here and how to minimize pollution and health risk within the EJ area. Also the brownfield cleanup within the area. We're looking also at open space and park access within the EJ area. So an equitable transit now, that's the studies shows any success of transit-oriented development can be achieved if we have equitable transit, and we have so many tools, and also for the communities to include the equitable TOD area. Universal design is one of the equitable, and Vision Zero, and also the park area within the equitable section. That's showing here the different tools of the park and recreation, and within the EJ area. We are lacking within our area here in Northwest Indiana tree coverage within the EJ area, and that's something that communities should work on to increase more trees, and of course it's reflecting a better air quality. Smart section, and that's again the Internet of Things, and how is the government using that for the trash can equipped sensors to know that if it's the trash can is full and it needs to be changed. The smartphone, which is delivered a different advertisement now. Residential, we have the thermostat, and that's something considered Internet of Things. Transportation, which we have all of the communications now through the smartphones to know, and the ITS system. And we also can know with the smart mobility if we have an accident, a crash, a congestion, and how to avoid that, and they give you different routes. Healthcare also, they are using the smart mobility and Internet of Things. That's Scott is also area. He's one working on that. So if you have really technical questions, you can check with Scott, not me. We also covered the cell towers, which I work on that. And we offer also like a good practice and ordinance for cell towers communications, and how they enhance now cell towers. We have an example in Valparaiso, an example in Manastar, using like a flagpole, but it's a cell tower, or sometimes we use it as a tree also, so it doesn't show. We have the connected automated vehicles, how to connect vehicle to vehicle, or vehicle to infrastructure, or vehicle to everything. So that's very much what we have. We have a different references, as I mentioned, Appendix A, which include also all the supporting organizations showing different policies and practices and principles of sensible growth, which a community can also adopt within their area. Appendix B includes all the examples, as I mentioned, for the solar and wind power ordinance. That's a good example. If a community looking for that, they can use that. Appendix C include all the updated checkup and questions for the planning for sensible growth, the one from 2007, of course. And also if they want to make a decision, that's all updated within these chapters. So that's all, and I think if you have any questions.
Does anybody have any questions or comments or any contributions to this plan? What we need is a recommendation to forward this to the commission.
I'll make the recommendation to recommend the commission, unless you want to.
I'll second.
Either way.
I just think it's a great revision, hats off to the staff and the advisory committee.
I agree. There's an adaptability of the old sensible tools, but we've come a long way as a society over the last 15 years, 16 years, of just really things that we never thought about from the resources that we have to deal with. So we have a first, I guess it's George, and second David.
On the third from Dr. Kelly, he says he's happy to see it happen.
I'm sure he is. Say thank you, Eric. Thank you, Dr. Kelly. We've worked with him before, I think. It's an outstanding program that he represents. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anybody against? So this will be presented for adoption at our next regular commission meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you, Amanda.
Thank you, Anna. Next, we'll have Resolution 2313, adjusted urban area boundaries. Ray Speninger, making presentation. You can find information on pages 5 to 11 of your pamphlet. We're requesting a recommendation to the commission, depending if you like what you hear today.
So, you all will be voting for a recommendation for approval for the finalized 2020 adjusted census urban area boundaries. So just to recap, so the census designated urban area urban areas were delineated using the following criteria. So at least 2,000 housing units or 5,000 people, at least one nucleus of 1,275 housing units per square mile, and a density of at least 200 housing units per square mile. And again, just as a refresher, these are the current census designated urban areas, with the three large urban areas that contain 50,000 people or more, include the Chicago, Illinois, Indiana urban area, the Valparaiso Shorewood Forest urban area, as well as the Michigan City, LaPorte, Indiana, Michigan urban areas. So as we've previously discussed, the adjusted census urban boundary is created by MPOs in coordination with local officials, and this is done primarily for the Federal Highway Administration. The boundaries are smoothed to create a slightly larger area that's more suitable to transportation needs, as well as programs that are sponsored by Federal Highway. So these adjusted boundaries play a pivotal role in transportation planning and have implications associated with access to transportation funding opportunities, as well as continuity of funding, in that these adjusted boundaries help to prevent a road from switching back and forth between a rural or urban classification, as well as rural or urban federal funding sources, and to avoid confusion from irregular boundaries that are created from that census designation process. So adjusting the census urban area boundaries does not affect the population numbers or the federal metropolitan planning PL funding levels that are available to local agencies such as NERC. The adjusted boundaries are for transportation funding purposes only. They're not used for any sort of land use designation. So again, just as a refresher, this is what the adjusted boundaries look like in 2010 and are what are currently in place by the Federal Highway at this point in time. So these are the finalized boundaries. You can see that the Chicago adjusted boundaries are in light blue. Yeah, the adjusted boundaries for the Chicago urban area are in light blue. The Valparaiso Shorewood Forest adjusted boundaries are in light purple, and then the Michigan City LaPorte adjusted areas are in light orange. And then down here, this is the Lakes of the Four Seasons urban area that's smaller than that 50,000 population, but staff decided also needed to be adjusted in this process. So this is just a zoomed in version, or zoomed in map of the Chicago urban area. So you can see that portions of the national park were included, as well as a few areas around Chesterton and Porter that we believe are going to be developed within the next 10 years. There's also a large portion of unincorporated Porter County that includes Wheeler and Union Township that we included, as well as a portion of unincorporated Lake County just north of Winfield that was also included. And then the other area that were included in Lake County include southeast of Crown Point here, as well as this area in between Sherrville, Crown Point, Cedar Lake, and St. John. So as I mentioned before, the Lakes of the Four Seasons urban area was also adjusted. We decided to do this so that all of the town limits of Winfield were included, just to provide that continuity of roadways, just so they weren't flipping between that urban and rural classification. All except this small area here was included just because that portion there is actually designated in the Chicago urban area. It was something that we couldn't change because that was delineated by the census. So the Valparaiso Shore and Forest urban area, a lot of area was added to the north up to Route 6, as well as along the 49 corridor here to the southeast of the city. And then other portions were kind of smooth to incorporate area that staff believes has the possibility of becoming urbanized in the next 10 years. And then finally, we have the Michigan City LaPorte urban area adjustments. So as you can see, all of the town of Pines was included, as was areas we expect to become developed around the 421 I-94 intersection, as well as the US 20 and the I-94 junction. Areas along Johnson Road were also included to provide connectivity between Michigan City and LaPorte, and then as well as you can see large portions to the north of LaPorte as well to the southeast were also included in this adjustment, as staff as well as the city of LaPorte agreed that they can see these areas becoming urbanized within the next 10 years. So just to jump into our final steps for approval, obviously today I'm presenting to you all for that vote for recommendation for final approval by the commission. So on October 19th, the NERC Executive Board will vote to approve the final urban area boundary adjustments. NERC staff will then send the approved adjusted urban area boundaries to INDOT for review as soon as possible. Then from October through December, NERC staff will assist INDOT in coordinating with CMAP, IDOT, and MDOT to submit the complete adjusted census urban boundaries for the Chicago and Michigan City LaPorte urban areas, which span across the United States. Staff has also been in contact with our Federal Highway Administration representative, just coordinating our draft boundaries to make sure that everyone's on the same page. And then finally, on December 29th, that's the deadline for INDOT to submit the final adjusted urban area boundaries for all of Indiana to Federal Highway Administration for final approval. From there, it'll be in the Federal Highways, it'll be up to their discretion on when we'll hear back on whether they have approved our adjusted boundaries, and should then hopefully sometime in 2024 publish all of the adjusted boundaries for the U.S. So if anyone has any questions?
I just had a comment. I'd like to thank you and Tom Vandermoot for helping us at Union Township understand. Tom, we spent a lot of time explaining it to me, which is a controversial thing in our area. We have a better understanding. Then Tom came to our township board meeting and made an explanation that was very helpful to our township board members in the township. So I'd like to express our thanks.
I appreciate that. George and I met with Tom after our last commission meeting to get an overview.
And I'd like to
volunteered
to thank the chairman for his mentorship.
Well, I really thank staff because to try to explain this specifically for its purpose and intent and make it clear to people it's not annexation of municipalities or any other confusing detail. This application is really more for our highway program in this case, and to improve the efficiencies of distribution of those fundings. So I appreciate the staff's work on this. It's, as I stated before, it can be very confusing. So hopefully we brought some clarity to the people in Union Township particularly, but for the rest of the region. Any other questions, comments?
Real quick comment, there's still that elephant in the room when it comes to the transit funding. I just sent a message to my GM recommending that she reach out to Mike and Nikki and Ty here to discuss how that would impact, how basically excising Valpo from the Chicago UZA is going to have an impact both on Valpo's transit funding and on the transit funding split between us and the RTA. Probably going to end up requiring work, sorry, Stephen, from Stephen, myself, and Kelly. But I think it's crucial to get ahead of how that's going to impact, the different grant fees. So we'll see what goes out from there, but waiting for the FTA to give us guidance is going to be an exercise in
And I think what will be interesting is the options Valparaiso has right now with the organized area, what decisions they're making.
Move to make a recommendation to the commission for support of this action.
Thank you. Second from Mr. Pilkington. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anybody against? This will be heard at the Xerxes Commission meeting on October 19th, 2003. Since we have everybody here now, I'd like to have some introductions for the benefit of the secretary in the meeting minutes. I'll introduce myself. I'm Kevin Gross, Port County Superior Chairman of this committee.
Lynch Barlow, then NERC staff.
Laura Baum, NERC staff.
David Wright, Great Public Transit.
Steve King, Town of Maryville.
Dean Button, City of Hammond.
Max Fralinger, City of Valparaiso.
George Valpo, Union Township, Porter County.
Ryan Lissick, Dragonton, Indiana.
Beth Stringer, Valpo Transit.
Kevin Polite, NERC staff.
Ivana Martin, NERC.
Chris Murphy, Structure Point.
Jenny Monroe, VS. Jenny Monroe, VS Engineering.
Thank you.
Jake Dameron, Public Raymond and Cypher.
Alex Olesker, Public Record Cipher.
Kathy Luther, NERC staff.
Scott Weber, NERC staff.
Grace Benninger, NERC staff.
Stephen Hughes, Nurse staff. Tom Vanderwood, Nurse staff.
Thank you. I think we got everybody, and I'd like to welcome Max Relander. He was just recently appointed the official city engineer of Valparaiso. Next, we have topical committee reports. Anybody on staff want to make a committee report?
I would just make a commercial. Brian's probably getting this commercial also. We are not having EMPC this Thursday. We are, as some of you may know, we try to have topical workshops in between. So this Thursday, 9 a.m., there will be the third edition of EV Boot Camp, EV Electric Vehicle Boot Camp, and also Ride and Drive. So there'll be electric vehicles out there to drive around on. But come early to get a parking space.
Mitch?
Our next meeting is in November. I will put Steve on the stand here. He has a trail opening up soon in Maryville. Do you know when it shall open?
We probably not till early spring, Mitch, we're waiting on the bridge structures to be completed.
Okay.
So yeah, you're looking probably early spring.
Okay. The C&O Greenway is what I'm referencing, and it will run from the Oak Prairie to Taft. That will complete a trail from Oak Ridge Prairie to the South Lake Mall vicinity, and the Oak Ridge Prairie itself will now have two other regional trails right there as well. So big news there for the region. Thanks, Steve.
They have a map that shows exactly where that is.
No, I don't do
Pretty
maps.
big.
Yes. Let me, thank you, that's an excellent segue, George. NERC is, we have an online map. We have a map app that's been active for quite a few months now. We encourage everyone to download it at will, it's free, it's fun. But we're updating our paper map for next year, our 24 map. We're looking to get some sponsorships out and to obviously update it with the information I just explained, but we'll be doing that and then getting those maps out to the region far and wide next spring.
Pending the financing.
Hmm?
Pending the financing.
But we should be fine with the financing, it's just a matter of making sure it's accurate.
Mitch, there were cards, I saw a card with a QR code. Are those available for the taking?
Yeah, well, yeah. I don't know who made those. Meredith, yes. It's because they needed to be made. I don't know if we have enough of those cards. What he's referring to is a QR code that gets you to the app for the bike, the greenways and blueways on Android and iPhone. No, I don't think we have enough cards for that, but what we're trying to produce here in-house is a series of posters you can hang in your municipal office and at retail stores so people can walk up and pop out with it.
That'd be great.
Yeah, so now that we, I think, have our printer or plotter fixed, we'll get those laminated and hopefully out, probably by spring, if not over the winter, but that's something that's thank you for that.
Yeah, I saw one in the bike shop and was like, that's very cool.
Any other topic for committee reports? Hearing none, let's move to Drive Clean Indiana. Mr. Listen.
Hello, everyone. So as far as grant funding is considered, we do have the National Dare Program that has come out. It is due December 1st. It is 25% off diesel replacement, 35% off CNG and propane replacement, 45% off electric replacement. You do have to replace an old dirty diesel by scrapping the engine of these projects. Any more information needed, I do have handouts, have a one-on-one consultation. There is an electric vehicle charger reliability and accessibility accelerator program that we will be applying for with the state and some other state departments on as far as NDOT and such. And it's focused on replacing the old charging infrastructure that is not currently operable for a number of different reasons. And we will be applying for that. If there's charging stations and we're not talking that are not working in your neck of the woods, please let me know, and we're going to be including everything that's on there. But please check with me if there's ones to make sure. The Indiana NEVI funding, this is electric vehicles charging station funding for fast chargers. This is 80% funding. This is through NDOT, and it is 4 150 kilowatt charging ports per location. Applications are due November 22nd. On Thursday, during our meeting, we will be having NIPSCO discussing their stations that they are applying through for the NEVI funding through our Go EVIN program. So feel free to come to that. And registration's free, just need to register. The EPA Clean School Bus rebate has opened recently. That is $500 million available towards the replacement of propane electric schools, buses, and that's up to $345,000 for prioritized schools that want to do an electric school bus replacement. Applications are the easiest thing that they've ever been, ever. So must apply by January 31st. Going back to Thursday, GPTC will be recognized by the Department of Energy at our event. GPTC will be recognized because they were recognized at the Department of Energy 30th anniversary in Washington recently, and we will be recognizing them as well with the certificate on Thursday. And I believe they will have an electric bus there on hand. All right. And that pretty much is it. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Do we have any of our planning partners here from southwestern Michigan, northeast Illinois, or southeastern Wisconsin. Seeing nobody, I'll say that we have our staff announcement, or the upcoming meeting announcements on the agenda for today. I'll point out that PROC will be Transportation Resource Oversight Committee for both Porter Lake and LaPorte counties will be November 8th. STC.
Mr. Chair, sorry, real quick, T-Rock is actually going to be on October 31st, Halloween Day. That is incorrect on the
Thank you.
agenda.
I was announcing it because I thought it changed. But
Yeah,
it's the
it's
31st.
incorrect here. It's on Halloween.
Everybody make a note.
We dress up.
I say costumes.
Costumes are.
You can ask Charles on that one.
They're optional.
They're optional, but encouraged.
I say optional, encouraged, and getting expensive.
Can't speak at the meeting unless.
I'm the chairman. I'm not optional.
Well, optional was encouraged.
STC meets November 14th. And this committee will meet November 28th, 10 o'clock in this room. Do we have anything else good for the cause?
Yes.
Mr. Rudd.
We are in the midst of a public comment period leading up to a public hearing at 3:30 on Wednesday, November 1st. This is for the CMAQ funded service changes to Central Gary and Hobart. Our recommendation is an enhanced bus route that would connect downtown Gary, Methodist Hospital to IUN, doubling the frequency from an hour to a half hour on that, and creating two new feeder routes. One that would connect the Terrytown and Marshalltown neighborhoods in Gary to that set of higher frequency bus routes, basically an east-west crosstown circulator, and a local circulator that would connect at IU Northwest into Hobart. Our surveying of Hobart residents was kind of almost even for getting to the hospital, getting downtown, and getting to 51 and 6. So we created a shuttle that would connect IUN and the BMX and this new Branch Street route to all three of those locations at an hourly frequency. So we will be doing a public hearing on that Wednesday. There's also a virtual presentation, I want to say next Wednesday, that will go through all of the data that led to these recommendations. I do want to thank the NERC staff for the funding recommendation earlier this year that pushes up the funding for this service improvement by, I want to say, 2 years. So we wouldn't be talking about this right now had NERC, NICFI, and GPTC come to an agreement that pushed up those CMAQ dollars. I do want to thank the NERC staff for that recommendation. And I think I sent the public hearing notice to Flor, so she can send it out to the TPC, possibly. That has information on the virtual public hearing, virtual meeting next week, and the public hearing itself, and a map of the service changes.
And you said it was November 1st?
November 1st is the public hearing, yes.
At what
That
time
we are
and where?
At 3:30 at the Metro Center in downtown Gary. That way our board can have the information to approve it by next year. We're hoping to be in service this year, by the end of this year. I kind of made a promise to Charles.
Make sure you have some balloons and cake, that's my birthday.
Our balloon and cake budget, we blew that for the Lucky Festival.
We'll be expecting you to wear a costume.
That I will.
Anybody else? Any other information? I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Mr. Topol, second.
Sure, second.
Thank you. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Thank you all for coming.
All those drafted, you do your work.